Thank you. There's so many things to talk about here. Let me quickly get to it, and some things I might leave for follow-up questions for the record. First, I want to say that I'm glad to see that Congressman Holtgren's bill, which I co-sponsored on high-performance computing, has been incorporated into the discussion draft. I know it's vitally important that we keep up investments in high-performance computing that push the boundaries of what's possible and keep us on a path towards exascale computing, as we were just talking about. I've seen firsthand how impressive these high-performance computing projects are by visiting the Mira supercomputer at Argonne, which is in my district. So it's great to have Argonne there. It's a great example of what we can do and what we should be doing more of. I may come back, or may, for the record, ask Dr. Dehmer about the Oscar program. But I just wanted to move on to talking about tech transfer. It's been one of my top priorities since I've been in Congress, making it easier to get these research findings that then become new technologies, new inventions, get them out of the lab and into the market. Our national labs have been real leaders in this space, as many of them have taken money that they received from licensing agreement and put it towards funds that help accelerate the commercialization of new technologies. Still, I think more can and should be done both at the labs and at DOE. I want to ask Dr. Dehmer, could you talk about how the Office of Science approaches technology transfer and how you look to partner with the labs primarily funded by the Office of Science in these activities?
Well, I'll tell you briefly what the Office of Science is doing in our SBIR program. We have a new part of that program called TTO, Technology Transfer Opportunities, and it allows applicants to the SBIR program to use technologies or R&D results from our laboratories in their work and the SBIR grants. And having looked just recently, a couple of days ago, at the latest funding opportunity announcement from the SBIR program, there are dozens of technology transfer opportunities noted in that for applicants. So we are aggressively working with our laboratories, also our universities, but mostly the laboratories, to take the results of their R&D and move them to small businesses. I also want to comment on what the Secretary is doing, Secretary Moniz. He is very interested in reducing barriers to the laboratories working with small business and industry. And his Lab Policy Council, which was just established and had its first meeting last week, was devoted about 50% of the time to talking with lab directors and others about how we can reduce barriers and make it easier to do exactly what you're saying.
Very good. It's great to hear those things. And I think I'm sure there's more that we can do. One thing I'm interested in is having DOE participate in the Innovation Corps program, and that's something I'd like to continue to talk about. One other thing I wanted to get to right now is flexibility for the labs. And I think there is a need to have more flexibility. I'm glad to see that the language in the bill expands the use of ACT agreements that can be entered into between labs and small businesses without an extra layer of review from the DOE. It's a good start, and I applaud DOE for working with the labs on a pilot program for these agreements. But I want to ask Dr. Dehmer if DOE is looking at other areas from tech transfer to facilities construction where perhaps the labs could be given a bit more leeway in what they are doing for the more minor decisions. I understand the need to follow DOE's lead on larger strategic investments is always going to be there, but in terms of giving a little more flexibility to the labs.
Yes, that's one of the things that's actually concerned me for a long time. Sometimes it's called atomization of budgets, where budgets are put out in very small amounts. One of the things that we've done in the Office of Science is we've created funding constructs that put money to the laboratories, in fact, even to the universities, in much larger amounts. And having a larger amount of funding to work with gives the labs that flexibility. And examples are the Nanoscale Science Research Centers, 5 of them, that we put in place about 10 years ago now, the first one not quite 10 years ago. That's a $25 million budget item, and the labs have flexibility to use that, subject to annual or biannual or triennial review. The Energy Frontier Research Centers, the Bioenergy Research Centers, and the Energy Innovation Hubs are all constructs that put funding to the performers, largely, in many cases, largely to the laboratories, in chunks of money that give the lab just this kind of flexibility and discretion in spending that you're talking about. I think that is something that I started almost 10 years ago when I was in basic energy sciences, and I'm pleased to see is continuing. I also don't like to see too many constraints put on laboratories with too small amounts of money.
Thank you very much. And just very briefly, I just want to bring everyone's focus back to two things that Dr. Simon said. One is the great cooperation we have in this country, universities, the national labs, industry. We need to not only appreciate that, we need to do what we can at the federal level to help to continue and to help grow those. And I was glad Dr. Simon pointed those things out. And also the last thing that you had said in your testimony, Dr. Simon, about the future and what the future looks like for young scientists today. And I think we all need to focus on that and do what we can to make sure that we continue to be the place that young scientists want to come to and to stay. So thank you.